I'm Kalen Williamson. I'm here with my friend Ansley Ash, and today we're going to talk about the seeds of story. Basically, how do we create our stories? So I'll go first. So
Yay!
Ansley, so Ansley has a moment to see the craziness that I've concocted. So my process is a little bit weird. I start with an emotion. So if you look at the Tumultuous 20s, which is available now on Amazon, each story had an emotion before it had anything else. So Chipped was about an unhappy family, but it was the emotion of unhappiness and frustration with your family. Betrayal, like I was not trying too hard with these titles. It was about being betrayed. Flowers was a little bit more creative. It was about rage. You really wouldn't get that, but if you read it, you see how flowers play into rage as you get through there. Gray, and again, we're back to titles that are a bit obvious, was about gray morality.
Well, but you were also in your 20s. So, like, I feel like,
Right? And then we have TikTok, and that was before the app ever existed. Okay. It clearly was inspired by my short story based on anxiety and dreams. And actually, so the whole thing started with anxiety. And I was like, what do anxious people do? Have dreams about being anxious. That makes sense. So that's what that story is. Maze was depression. Labelle was beauty, which, if you speak French, that means the beauty. So there we go with that. And Jump was about risk taking. So those are all the stories. And I started with an emotion. And from there on out, I built the story. So I knew what I wanted the emotion to be, I knew what I wanted the characters to feel. And I built the situations around them. So, like Ansley said, that was 2014, Kaylin, when I started this first book. It was originally named Tapestry. I recently re released it under Tumultuous 20s. And that's how that came to be. And even though it's been many years, my process is still really similar. So, if you haven't read, Ansley does a lot of mysteries. She has been doing novellas for the Black Orchid Novella Award. And since
which
we've
you're
been
also
friends,
doing one this year. Like, I've corrupted you.
yes. And so since my friend was doing it, I was like, I'll do it with her. And I created a story. And this actually is inspired by one of my shorts I haven't even written yet. So sometimes I get inspired by other people's work. I was reading a short story about these crazy characters. And I was like, they seem insane. And I can't give it away because it's a mystery. And I was like, in my head, I was like, ooh, I think this guy could be obsessive. I think this girl could be into him or not. I'm not
Because,
sure.
because
And then maybe, right?
what's more attractive than an obsessive guy, right?
Right? I love
What do you
me an
think?
obsessive guy. Ansley likes sanity. I don't know what she was thinking. She's like, I just want sanity in my life. Whereas if you know my type is absolutely insane. But yeah, and I was like, will there be an affair? So I have an idea for the short story. And then I was like, so I knew the characters, and then I just plopped them down into a mystery. And if you read, oh no, it was actually on my TikTok, the app this time, not the short story, that I talked about Ansley giving me advice. And she's like, pick red herrings, make sure you have clues, get it together. And I was like, okay. So for me, it started with the characters, it started with who they were. And then I inserted all the mystery in there. What crime was there? What's happening? Who are they? Who's having the affairs? Who's obsessed? Who's not? And I inserted it all based off knowing my characters so well and just how I pictured them in my head. So I'm going to give Ansley a chance to talk about her submission, or one of
Okay.
her past submissions. I don't know which one she's going to pick for the Black Orchid and how she came up with her story.
All right. So, for those of you who have, it is available on the Substack for free. You can download it. The Big Intersection. It is one of my reader magnets, and it is the very first submission that I had for the Black Orchid Novella Award. And we've talked a little bit about how the nugget of that inspiration was I was sitting in the car with my kid, and I was trapped behind this blue hybrid, and it didn't go through a couple of stoplights. And I was like, oh my gosh, what could be wrong? But the person lived. Yay! I was like, what if they're dead? And so I came home and I just wrote, like, the story just like wrote itself. And it's just kind of, I've talked about this with my other friends, about this, but that is where the nugget of that story is. So I want to show you what a nugget looks like. One of these things from IRL that happened. So this happened to me yesterday. So I was going to teach a class, ironically, on how to plot a mystery novel yesterday, and I got off the intersection to go to the library, and I see this puff of smoke coming across, right? And I was like, well, so at first, like, it's kind of light colored. It was a little bit overcast, the same color as the clouds. And I was like, huh, that's some low clouds. And then it picks up steam, and I was like, oh, that's not a cloud, that's smoke. I was like, and then my mind goes to like what people do up here, which are a lot of backyard burns of leaves, like it's spring. Normally they do it in the fall, but some people wait till the spring, make sure they get them all, rake them up, and then burn them. And I was like, that's kind of a windy day for this. And then the smoke starts getting blacker, and I was like, oh, that's someone's house that's on fire. And I turned on the street to go to the library, and I was like, huh, I guess it's in that neighborhood, and I'm never going to see whose house it is. I was like, whew. But I keep driving down the street, and lo and behold, it's an RV that's on fire, and it's not, like, literally on the street, but it's, like, the next house over, so, like, as I'm passing one of the cross streets, I can see the RV on fire, and I was like, "That's a lot of smoke," and the gasoline must have caught on fire because there were flames everywhere, and I was like, "That's an RV that's on fire, that thing is engulfed," and then as I'm thinking in real time, I was like, "Hey, there are no firefighters here, maybe I need to pull off to the side of the road and call 911 so the firefighters can come." And just as I'm getting ready to do that, boom, the first cop car is like, what? And sirens, and they're rushing. And I was like, cool, I don't have to. I can go teach my class. And I don't mean to be like callous to somebody else's loss, but like I did have somewhere to go and it was taken care of. And this is not my town. So I didn't know which street it was on. So I would have been no help to the cops or the firefighters whatsoever. I'd been like, there's smoke, that way, and I can't tell the operator which way that way is because they can't see me. So, like, yeah, this was going to be crazy. So it's a good thing somebody else had called this in. All right. So we have not put this in, but this is the type of thing that I go past, right? So we take our handy dandy little note card, and now we're going to put RV is engulfed in flames. It's a mystery, so there needs to be a body in RV, and what are things, and maybe they're making meth.
That reminds me of Breaking Bad.
I don't know that meth will be the thing. I don't know that this will be the thing that whatever. Meth is not a deal breaker. So we write this up like live, and then this goes into our handy dandy excuse me. If you've seen me, but this is my jar, which is literally a vase. And it goes into the vase. And the next time I want to plot any kind of a mystery, we pull it out and we see which one speaks to me. And every time I pull them out, something else happens. And then from that, so that's my nugget. And then I usually write like a log line. This one I don't know which investigator it's going to be, but frequently I do already know. So now we're going to go back. There's a reason why we started with the big intersection. And these are the note cards for Big Intersection, which I've already written. I'm moving this from a novella to a novel, so that's why I'm carrying note cards. This goes around in my purse with me, my box. I have more than one of these. But I have an index card box, and it's filled with index cards, and it goes around. And when I think of ideas, I just think of ideas, and I put them on a note card. So this is one. So the first scene is obviously the red light, which is the name of the scene and all of the like information that's there, right? And then as we just talked about with the RV, 911 call, that's kind of like really obvious. That's what happened next. Now I know, well, I knew who it was. So who's the worst possible victim to be dead in this car? So Allison and her husband arrive at the scene, right? Who's her enemy, and she meets her enemy and her enemy's husband. And then what does her husband do? He's a bartender because Allison has a little bit of a drinking problem. So that's the worst thing for Tony to be. And we're going to go through several. So from that, when I knew what happened, um, we come through. Oh, then since Tony's a barkeeper, that's a great place for Allison to meet our victim's widow. So then Allison meets the widow. So like I know she has to meet the widow at some point because wives kill, spouses kill each other. So that's a suspect. And Allison has to do that. And they needed a place to do this. And Tony being a barkeeper, so they're gonna meet in the bar, right? So I write this up. So
Is
then
this
in
a
the
pre-existing world because it's Allison's world? So you're inserting this all into a world you know?
all into a world I know, and like so sometimes I do have to world build on the fly, but I don't know. Like with Charlie, I didn't have to world build because that's a little bit like what my life was like moving from a big city in the South to the small town Midwest, and what that was kind of like being an outsider. So like I didn't really like I had to make up a name for it. But there are just certain local places like up here that exist over and over and over again. Like the locally owned whatever bakery. In my world, it's a coffee shop, but the bakery. There are toy shops. There are just interesting little things that happen in a big don't happen the same way in a big city that they do in a small town. And so like small towns like pull together. So like there are still like I don't know, small town hobby shops or toy shops, small town coffee shops, independently owned things, independently owned restaurants, independently owned, I don't know, cell phone stores. I
That makes sense.
mean,
Because, like,
like
I
it's
will
Bob's, right?
say,
Because Bob has. So, like, sometimes I know the world and sometimes I just kind of have to make it up and I just drop it into the world. I usually know my world pretty well. And then I think, okay, what has to happen? And there are five. These are one of the things. So, like I was telling Kalen, like, what do you need? You need a crime. You obviously need a victim. You need a suspect or two. Well, you need at least two for it to be a mystery because your investigator needs to, depending on how long your story is, two a novella length for the Black Orchid, which is 15 to 20,000 words. Typically, a novella is 20 to 40,000 words, but the Black Orchid's like, we don't want to read, a bunch of 25, 30,000 word submissions for our magazine. So 20,000 was their limit on the magazine. So they just redefined novella for their award because they can. So I typically have like three suspects, who's going to be a suspect. Um, and in Allison's world, it's who's the worst person to be suspected, right? So like it's always so one suspect is always going to be what's the worst case scenario for Allison, and sometimes that person is actually guilty of the crime, and sometimes they're the red herring. And then who is the most obvious suspect, right? So like Gabriel McDuff is murdered. He's an actor. He's married, right? So the worst possible suspect is her daughter. Um, which also makes it kind of a locked room mystery because Justine is in the car with Allison. So how could Justine have stabbed Gabriel if she's in the car with Allison at the time that Gabriel is dying? So like that's a thing. Like is it a
and you just,
distraction? But why would they be? And then the spouse is an obvious suspect, and then who other than Allison would who other than Justine would be a suspect to get three? That's how I get that. And six, because people can't keep track of more than five. So six or seven for a novel length. So you need suspects.
um,
And then there are
because,
five key moments. Literally just my internet
yeah,
connection is unstable. Okay.
yeah,
So try
you're
that again.
pausing a little bit, but yeah, so I'm gonna jump in, but hopefully it stabilizes. But yeah, for so let's go back to I'm gonna go back to setting really quick. I do make mine up. I make it up a lot, especially I'm so character based. We don't even know where all the settings are sometimes. I'm just like Chloe's just living her life in a place that is very like Atlanta. And I'm very guilty of doing this. I have things that are like Atlanta. I have things that are like Rhode Island. I have things that are like a lot of things because I'm making it all up. Clover lives in a fictional LA, and everyone was confused. And I was like, no, no, it's fictional LA because I'm not going to make anything real. I'm just crazy. I make things up. And so, so it's always made up. So we will talk about, since Ansley's here, this is not the paper where I wrote down where Ansley advised me of, like she was telling us. This is just my outline. So now you've seen my entire secret list right here of the current story that I'm writing. And so this, I don't
Okay.
even think has setting on it. I made it up. She comes from, I think it was Dilkin, Rhode Island, which is not a real place. And the story takes place in New London, Georgia. There's no New London, Georgia. That is fake.
There's no blue
But
ash. There's no blue ash. I made it up.
and so they're very fake places that I make up. And the inspiration is because I know, I come from Rhode Island and we had New York, which was New Amsterdam. And I was like, well, we can have a New London. I'm throwing New London in there. And Dilkin, Rhode Island is a very Rhode Island inspired name. It's Del and
Mhm.
Duncan was Delkin, Rhode Island. And so it's like crazy. I made it take place in New London, Georgia, because I wanted a swamp. I won't say more, but I wanted swamp. I wanted moss trees. Finley is an old Southern boy. He's inspired by an Irish man. So it almost took place in New England. I almost went Poe, cold, dark. And then I don't know. I was like, you know what? No, let's go swamp, humid. Let's do the opposite and make Finley a Southern boy. And Finley's one of my favorites. You have Brody, who is also Irish, who I wanted to make a Southern boy too. And Fiona, I thought Fiona could be Gothic Poe. And I was like, you know what? No, I'm gonna make her. So she originates from New England. So she's a transplant, which is so original. As if you know me, I'm also a transplant, and this is the originality of my stories. Is I made
Everybody
her
from their own life.
right. I made her a transplant, and that's how I came up with the setting so quickly. Is I took everything from my life. I took these characters. So my favorite characters are Finley, Brody, Fiona, Charlotte. Yes, that's her name. I made it 3 syllables. It's absolutely crazy. I know that. Jasper, which you can see I had really fun picking the names, and then Clarence, Sheriff Clarence. Ansley has not seen this. She does not know about Sheriff Clarence. She does not know about Jasper. She doesn't know I mean, Finley, the rich guy. I mean, Brody, like the handyman. And so Fiona fell for the practical guy. And that's not giving anything away because Finley is just their friend. And Brody, my story is called Finding Brody. It's because Brody went missing. Fiona's husband, Brody, is gone and no one knows where he is. So she calls Violet, living up in Delkin, Rhode Island, her old friend, to help her come find Brody. And that's where you meet Finley, Charlotte, and I don't know how Ansley came up with names. I have a mechanic. Oh, and Samuel. Samuel is funny. Just like a funny person. But there's this mechanic. And I don't know if Charlotte should be the mechanic or if I should have a separate person be the mechanic and have it be like Grace. Or I think I wanted to call her honestly Magnolia. And I think this is a world I want to keep because Magnolia and Charlotte and Finley and Brody, I don't know. They're crazy. I love it. So you can even tell my excitement for the names like went up. Like I was like, yeah, there's setting, there's plot, but really I have these crazy cast of characters and once again, I just love them. And then I took a paper, I took everything Ansley was talking about and I made stuff up. So I made up all the names first and all the characters first. Then I made up the names of the places so I know where it is. And then, like Ansley said, you have to start shoving in, like, oh, who's guilty? So we had to decide that Brody was missing. And I think I knew that early on. But I was like, who took Brody? And I won't tell you if it's Magnolia or even Fiona. Like Ansley said, those spouses are suspicious. Is it fake? We don't know. We don't know.
Like,
Um,
can't wait to read this thing.
Right. It could be Sheriff Clarence is in on it. I called him Clarence. I just really liked it for him. Sheriff Clarence did it. It was a conspiracy. Um, we don't know. And so that's where I like how to say we as if I'm not writing it. And that's how I start. That's how I go. I think Ansley's connection is less wobbly for the last couple of minutes.
Let's hope so. Okay.
So
5 key moments that are in every mystery. All right. The crime or the inciting incident, although the order of this is not, so this is a traditional mystery. So it's the crime, or I like to write heist stuff. So what are we going to steal, right? And the crime comes at the end. Instead of solving the crime, we're going to get away with the crime. Okay. So the crime comes first, then acceptance of the goal. Or so your detective decides that you're going to solve the crime, or your thief is going to accept that they're going to steal the thing. And then you interview the suspects, or in this case, the obstacle, or if it's a heist, it's the obstacles. So like, who are the guards? Who are they going to be? This is interviewing the suspects becomes casing the joint. False victory or defeat, where we think we've solved it, but we haven't, or we think we can't do it, but we can. And then you're going to solve slash get away with the crime. That's it. Those are your 5 elements. And then you take something like, got to talk to that widow, because did the widow disappear the husband? I don't know. You don't know, right? The detective doesn't know, but they're silly not to interview that. And so interviewing the wife has got to be in there somewhere. So yeah. So, and who else? Who does Brody have beef with? Who is Brody having an affair? Who is Brody having an affair with? Or is Fiona having an affair with somebody, and that person needs Brody out of the way? I mean, and I don't know. I just gave Kalen, and I say them, and my class, my writing group. I just gave everybody, like, this is what you put in there, and then there are ideas, and people talk to me about their nuggets, and then I'm like, ooh, how are you going to
that's
do this?
so funny though, because you did tell me that. And I think I did put a fight scene with Brody to be like, was it that? And then I forgot to put it in my outline, but like I'm sure it's here somewhere. It's not in the outline. But he got into a fight with someone, and now I forgot. It wasn't Stetson. There's someone named Stetson. I love that I named him that. I was like, it's Stetson. He's not suspicious at all. You should trust him. Oh, maybe you'll just guess by the names. But I forgot who Brody got into. He got into a fight with. Originally, I was gonna make it an out of towner, and I don't know if it's still an out of towner because I have completely dropped that line and forgot. So now that Ansley reminded me, I have to remember that. And I still don't have a false victory at all. I don't have that. No one wins. The
No
end.
one wins, or defeat, where it's like, oh, we're not going to find Brody at all, but then maybe we do.
Mm. Yeah, I don't. I think you just got an ending with me where it's like, well, here's the ending out of nowhere. I had to ask Ansley. I called her. I've only written 2 chapters so far. Ansley has completely written her novella and it's off to edits. Responsible Kalen, who decided to do this as an experiment like less than a month ago, is still writing it.
Don't
So
worry,
we'll
with your submissions. Listen, if you fall behind, there'll be another one next year. Just put that one in next year.
see.
Get it done. No worries.
Right, I'm just doing it for fun, so it's really crazy and Mod Podge and putting it together, and even I don't. Like, I was like, Brody did get into a fight. What happened with that fight? So I don't even think I know my plot. And I talked a little bit in my posts and stuff on how wild it is, where I'm like, I don't even 100% know. I know the characters, but I don't, and I know 90%, I think, of what is going to happen on my 1 page outline. I just slapped it together though. And so it's like,
It's
oh
so
yeah,
funny you said 1 page outline. There is a 1 page.
what
We did this.
happened?
There is a 1 page outline thing where you can do that. Oh, I pulled this wrong.
Right. And that's
Uh,
I'm impulsive. This is how I usually write. So, and I will say, Ansley came to visit me and she was like, so I am notorious for having a million ideas and I don't write them down and then I forget and then I get upset. So Ansley bought me this right here. so that way I could write them all down, and I have them, so I do write them down. But Ansley showed you her organized way of doing things, and so I'll give you a little sample of my pink. I made her buy me pink note cards. My pink note card. And I wrote, love. Everyone thinks love makes you insane, but really it forces you to be sane and reasonable for the person you love. That's it. That's my idea. That's what I wrote. And from this, I'll make an entire story and just make up everything. So I wanted you to see the organization of Ansley and the absolute chaos of Kalen, where I'm like, this is the story. And you're like, this doesn't even have a
The
character. But
okay, I can't stress this enough. Okay, so this is there's one page outlining. So like I've done this. I took this as a class, right, where you can put all of these, and it's got six, eight. It's got eight different things where you can put it in there. So that's another way to do this. But yeah, one page is for a novella. It's really all it takes. I cannot stress this enough. Okay, this. Do I have it in here? What happened to my thing? This is a disaster.
this is
My
ah,
divider is
what
gone.
what are you looking for?
My divider. Oh no, it's in here. Sorry.
Yeah.
I thought my divider was gone, but it's not. So I have this as a divider, and I have this as a divider. All right. And this is my traveling note cards. Okay. So like this is my box.
Yes. She
And
brought them
like
to my house.
I know I did. And I do carry this box around with me everywhere, but I have to have a box. And it has to be like the plastic hard case thing because I carry it everywhere. I take it through airports. It goes through everything. I have all of my pencils, and then occasionally, depending on whatever, my this is my autograph pen, but my fountain pen. So I do carry these with me everywhere, but this is just, it's a way to contain the chaos, right? Because when I'm in plotting mode, like I just think of potential scenes. So like we got the nugget, that could be a scene in a novel too, right? Like with the plumes of the smoke and the RV going up and all of that, who's there, who's watching it, what are we doing? And so it's not just a nugget, it's also a scene, right? And so like that would be RV engulfed in flames, and so there are like a number of obvious scenes, but sometimes they're not so obvious. And I carry this around with me all the time. I sat and I wrote 10 potential scenes, some in the big intersection and some in the political thriller I'm going to write in November. I wrote those while I was at my son's volleyball game. Like we were in between games. There's 5 minutes. I had nothing else better to do with my life. I pulled out my note card. I put them up top like this. I'm holding them on my lap and I'm writing like this on my balancing it on my knees. I do look ridiculous. Do I care? No. And then it goes into my purse and whatever.
Yeah.
But that
See, so Ansley is very organized. I don't get as many ideas out in the wild. You are, girl. I've seen your Excel sheet. Don't lie to people. I
no, that's a chaos management system. It's not Melanie is or Ansley is organized.
no, your Excel sheet for your plots. But
But that's after I have like a chaotic number of I have to go through and I have to count my note cards. And then we lay them out right? But I don't ever know what order they're gonna be in. I just know like the main again, we're back to our five key elements, and we're back
right.
to like what
But
the
see,
structure is.
so that's your structure. And that's what I wanted them to see though, because you are more organized than me. I'm chaos. This is the first time I've ever been one page organized. Usually I just write things out of
But
nowhere. I just sit
I
down
think we
and I'm
write
like,
short stories.
write things. And even my novel I did that way though, where I was just like, I don't know, and I wrote it. So this is my
And is it
first
released yet?
time. Mini. But this is my first time outlining. And so I want people to know you can do both. You can be chaotic. I did finish my first draft of Clover, but I just didn't feel like editing her.
Forever.
Also, I don't know if she's going to be Tribe Pub either. So she's just like a bigger project and more complicated, whereas these stories are more simple. But I did not need an outline to do more complicated. I need the energy to rewrite a book, but I wanted to launch indie books And so I did not want to indie launch Clover because she is complicated. She's difficult. Ansley doesn't know. I changed something in Clover and I didn't tell Ansley what I changed. And it's going to make the whole project, this is so off topic, it's going to make the whole project more complicated for me to edit. And it's crazy. I just like a good difficulty level. So I have an easy thing here. But I'm like, why do easy when you can do insane? That that works for me. So I
Okay.
just want people to know.
But George R. R. Martin calls your process gardening, right? Where you have an idea and things grow and things change as you write it, and that's called gardening. And so when you're done, typically with like a first draft, then you only need a second or third draft just to polish things up, and mostly you're done. So the work goes in the beginning. Whereas with the outlining, the brain work goes into the outlining, you write it through, but maybe you need a couple more drafts. Like I frequently go through 4 or 5 drafts before. And I do think gardening takes longer because you're working in the scenes and each scene is a little bit more interlocked than and
So my
mystery is
process is
complicated in that it is driven, not character driven. And so much of what you do is
uh,
character driven,
I
emotion
don't
driven.
I've actually done up to 8 edits on a lot of my stuff. So even though I write a little bit slower and I just chaotically make things up, but they are in order, which is so crazy that I'm a chaos demon, but like all the scenes exist in my head. I just have to write them down. So this is the first time I'm working with outline, which is probably why the fight scene got lost. And I was like, oh, that's kind of one of the flaws of the chaos way of doing things, but I'll remember it and I'll just go back. I use Scrivener, so you can go ahead and hop all over the place and write that back in. Um, but yeah, the number of edits for me has nothing to do with whether or not I outlined or didn't. It's the difficulty level of the work. The harder the work, the more literary, the more crazy, the more layers, the more edits I have to do. The easier the work that I understand it, it's linear. We're following structures people have heard of before. Clover is not like so original that you're going to be like, I've never heard of it, but it's way more difficult than Violet and Delkin and New London, Georgia, who it's a pretty straightforward mystery. I don't give you any like craziness, which until you read some of my other work, you'll be like, what craziness? But yeah, so for me, the edits really have to do with the difficulty level of the writing. And one thing you would not think the rewards program is particularly crazy. It's not in that it takes place in a parking lot and you don't leave the parking lot. Nothing is wild about it. But because I start with emotions, because I told you about that note card, that's just like love is insanity. It's very hard to bring that to fruition to the point where the reader understands like what are you doing? Why is she running away with this man in the parking lot? Like, and I have to make that make sense of why you would date a random man who hit on you in a parking lot and then took you to a suspicious trailer. Why does that make sense? And so I start with the characters. I love Luke. I love Luke. He's insane. Don't date him, but I love him. And so it's Luke and Marnie, and I have to make it make sense. Whereas I think Violet helping her friend find her missing husband, because we don't know if Fiona did it yet, um is so much more straightforward. It is a plot. Where is Brody? Where did he go? Who took him? What happened? And so when you're plot driven, I don't think I need quite as many edits because it's pretty clear what the story is. Whereas when my character driven. So yeah, anyway, that never affected my number of edits. It's always been the difficulty level. Clover, it would have been done. I changed her difficulty level when I changed her point of view. So I did that and
And
was
now
and
do you
I
see
do
the
you right, I've actually gone back and forth on her point of view, and that's why I haven't gone back to it because I have to think it all the way through. And that book is just hard for me to think through if my idea will work. And everyone's like, just write 100,000 words and see. Like, no, no. I'll take my time and think it through before we write another 100,000 words. We already wrote 50,000.
I don't think I
Um,
have ever recommended that to you. Like I am not everyone.
I know, right? Like, oh gosh, that would be a nightmare. But yeah, so this is how we come up with stories, and it can be a chaotic process or organized process. I will say I'm very happy writing my ideas down, and if not, if I don't have my index cards, I can always use my phone. Although I do some of my best thinking in my house or in the shower where you don't have phone or a note card because that works. Um, and just writing your ideas down. So I think that is the most useful. And then when you're outlining, you can have Ansley's way, where you have a lot of note cards that have all the information. You do it my way of a chaos demon, whether you're doing my short story way, or my Clover novel way, which is just sit down and write whatever crazy ideas. I start with the scenes that motivate me the most first, so I don't forget them, and then just branch out from there, or the new one page outline that I'm trying. Like, ooh, that kind of works. And it really works with mystery. I think that's why Ansley likes them. She's always done mystery, whereas I've done women's fiction and
Not
literary. And
always. I was,
uh,
epic fantasy when we first met.
yeah, that still needs, well, I did epic fantasy. I didn't do an outline. That story was really straightforward, though. I think with a lot of epic fantasy, depending on your subplots, I didn't really have much of a subplot for mine.
Yeah, so this is where Kaylin was talking about I use a workbook. I use a set of spreadsheets to organize my stuff into it, and it is from my epic fantasy writing days, which are now sadly in the past. But I kept dropping subplots, and I was like, darn it. And so like I would get to the end of an edit or to the end of a book, and then I would go back to the edit and I'd be like, what happened to that subplot? I don't understand. And that's when I was like, I need to organize something. So I was studying structure, and I was telling my writing group yesterday, I think every single system out there for writing a novel, I have failed at least once, if not more than once. Like I've tried the Pearl section, I've tried traditional outlining, I've tried Snowflake, I've tried Save the Cat, I've tried, I don't know, like what's the other one? Pet the Dog. I guess Pet the Dog is a bonding thing. I've tried Pet the Dog. I've tried them all. Like if it is out there, I have tried all
I've
of
tried
them.
them for about 5 minutes and then immediately quit. I never liked outlining. This is my first outline. I never liked it. I quit immediately. I don't like it. What I was doing, so I wrote a script once, and so you have Save the Cat, which is also very script writing. I looked at what they wanted my script to be after it was written and moved the scenes according to outline. So I've really never outlined, which if you outline first, you don't have to do that. But if you're not into outlining, you can do that. You can go back, move your scenes, and structure it according to an outline.
And
Um,
you might forget to, have the darkest night of the soul or
June's
whatever.
the only one I like, so I kind of remember it. But the rest of them, where they're like, "Remember beat 27?" Like, no.
No, no. But so I do, but most of my method comes a little bit from Snowflake, where like I have my nugget. From my nugget, I do my log line, then I do what I think of as my back blurb. And from there, and so I know I'm gonna fill that out, but that's as far in Snowflake as I go. And then James Patterson's masterclass, he talks about like when you're thinking about a problem or a crime or a set of crimes, like there are a number of scenes to just start presenting themselves to you. And he uses according to him, he uses like legal notepads and he just writes down potential scenes and he just writes them down and he kind of like, of course, he's been doing it so long, he like outlines and so he knows what his things and he's like, if you don't know what it is, just write TBD. Well, I don't write TBD. I write note cards and I just write down my potential scenes. So, like in this way, I have a certain affinity with him and his process. But I don't do it on paper. That would drive me nuts because I keep changing stuff around. But I do love the note cards because my potential scenes, so like some scenes could go anywhere. Like I had to interview the widow. It could have gone anywhere. As it turns out, it's going later on in the process. Um
Oh, see,
Rather than
don't take my outline seriously. So I've only done this once, but doing it on paper doesn't bother me because I'm never going to follow it anyway. And so my paper feels like a checklist. Kind of like how you forgot some plots. It's just like a checklist. Like, did you remember to write this scene? Did you? And like, so I don't really care what order they're in because I'm just going to write what I'm going to write.
I
And if
need
I have
to
to change something,
I need to visualize this plot. I need to visualize the scenes. Like that's what I found out. So like I did it this way and then I moved away from doing it this way and I was doing it strictly through the because I kept losing things. So I did just the note cards, and then I was doing just the spreadsheet. And I kept and but it actually worked so much better to combine the two. So like take it and do it. And so like there are what I call anchor scenes or signpost scenes. I think they're called in some types of writing where it's like you know what the next thing that needs to happen, right? Like you know if you're writing a crime story, you got to have a crime. Like it's got to be there. And so you are writing your way towards the discovery of the crime. And what's really interesting is in Agatha Christie, she one of the risks she takes in several of her books is she doesn't the crime doesn't even show up till halfway through. You meet all of the suspects and they're
Well,
ordinary
one
every
thing
time.
that's one thing we talked about because I do have my detective wandering around talking to everyone. Like she's talked to Jasper, she's talked to Finley. She's not really doing anything but talking to someone. But Ansley assured me that's what a mystery is. They're wandering around talking to people, and I was like, okay, because that's all she's doing. But
One
yeah,
of
I
your must-haves. It's one of your must-haves.
I actually have the list that she gave me over the phone somewhere, but I don't even know. Like, I am a chaos demon. I don't know where it is. I think it's somewhere in that notebook that I spilled milk on. And so it's somewhere in there. And so I'm writing the story. I think I thought about what she told me. I scribbled it down, and then I think I scribbled those notes into this outline and then like called it a day and immediately forgot. But yeah, so regardless of if you're a little bit more organized like Ansley or just like an absolute chaos demon like Kalen, and try all the different ways. Don't feel bad if they don't work for you because Ansley took a second, as I'm hearing, to figure out her process. And I have
10 years.
definitely taken
10 years. 10
I've
years.
taken over. I'm at 15 years writing and I still am experimenting. I'm still experimenting. I'm still experimenting with Clover, she's one of my two big, badass, amazing novels. And so I'm still experimenting with how I want it done. So even though there's a first draft of her, you're like, are you done? No, I might change the whole thing and then I have to do the do something different. And so it really is hard. So I do want newbies to know, like, it is a difficult thing to know your process and how you want to do it. So just do whatever comes naturally to you. And if it doesn't work out, just
Try
ditch it.
again.
Try again, ditch it, do something else. Do what's passionate and write the stuff that you love to write however it works inside your head. Because I could never think about anchor scenes or anything she just said. It doesn't exist. I am just thinking of characters. I'm like, what is Stetson doing? I forgot I have to have Stetson doing something. And then I forgot I have to remember who Brody had that fight with. I have to go back and look. He's having a fight. I just forgot who it was with. And because I love my character, so I'm like, no, I wonder if I accidentally wrote him out, the person he had a fight with, and was like, oh, but that doesn't make sense because it's a big part of I'm like, I don't know. And that's what happens when you're chaotic, and it's okay. Because guess what? By May, I will have a story. This will all be worked out. My critique partners will look at it. It will be fine. You can be a chaos demon. It will all come together. But that is how we come up with stories.
That's our process. Someone
Right?
says, listen, it's not that I'm less chaotic than you. It's that I was more frustrated by forgetting stuff than apparently you are. And I'm like, I'm tired of losing this to like note card. And I'm old school. I know there are people who do this. I know there are people who do this digitally, right? Who put it in their Scrivener, who put it in their whatever it is, whatever program they're using,
Yeah.
put it on notes on their phone. I I can't, right? Because I can't take that out, and it's not the same. It
I do
doesn't
think
feel like
having
it.
note cards, I like handwriting notes a lot. So I love Scrivener, but I chose to handwrite. I think I love writing in Scrivener, but if I'm going to take notes, I like to handwrite them. Which is really common in the writer world, but a lot of us like to write things. And we have like I was like, oh, I need more pens. I'm running out of pens. Like then I tried to put them all in a cup and you're like running out of what, ma'am? What are you running out of? Like the ability to keep track of a pen? Yes, that's why they're all in a cup now. Because they were scattered all over my room a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, I don't have any pens. But yeah, we like to write things down. And so also try that if you're having a
I
hard
don't even
time.
listen to that. I am seriously though. Oh, so like I have a pen on the floor over here, which I don't know what happened. So don't know why my pens are. I'm coming out of this chaotic period. So for those of you who were hearing, oh, and like I've got pens and pencils all over my floor here. I'm coming out of this chaotic. The dogs have been into my stuff. Um, so I'm coming out of this chaotic period. I had that big project that finished up on April 1st. I have still not cleaned up. So but my pen jar got clean. My pen cup got clean.
Oh,
So
that's
it went
good.
through.
Yeah,
It
I
went
don't
through.
I don't have any dogs. I just cleaned my room, and then they were on the in the corner of the floor somewhere after I cleaned, because I cleaned the desk, which meant everything went on the floor. You're like, good job cleaning. So now it's all in the muck. But yes, handwriting helps a lot. I like handwriting ideas and notes. It's just faster than like pulling out my laptop, turning it on, pulling up the right document to have ideas in. The only problem I've had is with notebooks and note cards and whatever is because I am chaotic. I can lose them. And I think this is the milk notebook that I kind of spilled milk on. I have all these like notes and it's full. Once a notebook is full, it can be hard like leafing through the pages and trying to find what the heck you wrote. So that's the only like downside. So I filled out an entire notebook this year. So I love doing it, but I then lost. Like
Have
I find myself flipping. And so you would think a binder would be better, but when I had a binder, I don't like that the pages rip, and then you can put the sticker on it, but that also annoys me and the binder's unwieldy. So, you know.
I've been through this entire process. Oh, like notebook, binder, whatever. What fits in the purse? One of these. One of these. Like
I know, but I like the note cards for my ideas, but I don't like them for an outline because they can't fit the whole thing in one note card, and it bothers me.
the okay. But like each note card is a scene, and then you
Yeah, but
line it up,
that's
and then
too many. It's one outline, so it should be one paper. Like
we
it's
clearly disagree. But that's okay. But this is where this came from. It's like all of that stuff, and it's like, and I've been through this process, and it's like, okay, I see what fits on the note card. I do have note cards. I do. Let's see. I do use them for everything as I sit down here, but like we'll go out. But so, right, moving this.
right.
Um,
Yeah, I love them for
these are
ideas. I
this is
write
what
all my ideas. Azure Black. Are you just taking my character name?
no, this came up from a random generator. Let's see.
Ansley steals my character names, although I do not have a Brian anywhere. Ah,
This one. So like this one came up, and the Severin, really. Killian,
hmm. Um,
Avidan, and then my favorite Tyler, but he's got a crazy last name.
yeah,
Um,
I don't even know card my names. I randomly Google them right before I write, or
Binomio,
even
Vidar,
worse,
like, yeah. I
while
use a
I'm
random
writing, I'll
I
stop for
use a
three
random
hours.
name generator. I now use a random name generator, but before, because I'm an old person, a very old person, back in the days when we had these things called phone books. I would go through the phone book
I
and
still I'm mid old person. I still just Google. And this time I Googled all the names before I started. Sometimes I just take a 3 hour break to find the perfect name for my characters. Because if it's not the right name, I get upset. I'm like, it's
sometimes
not
I use
right.
it. Sometimes I have a name meaning, like I have something that the name needs to mean something, right? So for the anthology, my names are Audra and Hump, because one means peace and the other means like chaos or something like that. I can't remember. But I needed the names to mean something, to have a specific meaning. So then I went to like these naming websites, for baby names. And I was like, what kind of a baby name? It's going to mean this. And so I put in the meaning that I wanted, to have. And so
I
like,
usually just look up I just look up names for the time period. So I looked up a lot of southern names. I don't know how I came up with Stetson. I wonder if that was on the list, or sometimes I go to Reddit forums and they have names. I don't know. But I came up with Stetson. I think that's the most fun
maybe you
name
just
in the
came across maybe just a a ad for the cologne came across, and you were like, "Yeah, that's a
Oh,
thing."
I didn't know it was a clone. No, it is either from Reddit or online somewhere else. So I can't remember which one, but yeah, once I saw Stetson, I was like, that's a name you'll use.
I
Brody,
frequent
I pulled from nowhere. Finley, I just like the name. Charlotte is just the way I wanted to spell it as a child and like didn't. And so I just gave her an extra syllable. Oh my goodness. I drove one of my critique partners crazy because it's Finley with two N's. I think that makes sense. It's Finley. It's not finally. He's not finally. Who's finally? But she's like, I like the traditional spelling. And I was like, I don't like finally. I like Finley. So that was just a name that I really liked. I forgot
Well,
their last name.
sometimes I have a character that, like, is gonna be a certain age, so, well, and so, like, there were things so, like, Renee, right? Like, so Renee's character was named by my oldest child, because my oldest child was like, "You have to have a character named Renee, a man named Renee." And I was like, "The heck is this?" Like, nobody and my kid is like, "Renee Auberjonois," and I was like, "Okay, well, right, whatever." So, like, make the kid happy, right? So then I'm like, okay, but that's a very French name. So like, why is some Southern chick gonna have? So like, where is the French influence? So like, his mom's from New Orleans. So like, mom has got New Orleans influence on there, but like, dad is gonna be from somewhere else. And so then I needed something that kind of had like more of like dad's ancestry. So like, we had to go through that. So like, there is a process, and then sometimes I know how old a character is going to be. So when I know how old the character is, I go back to like a couple of years, 2, 3 years in that time period. Maybe I don't exactly set the age, but like the character's in their mid 50s. This is going to be somebody who's born at the moment between 1969 and 1976, somewhere in there. I don't know exactly, and I'll go see what the most popular names are, and we're going to go down to like 100. Right? We're going to take a random number generator and we're going to go to like 100, and whatever number pops up, and then do I feel that name? And if not, we roll the dice again. I mean, that's just the way that goes. And then we pick a
Yeah,
last name.
I couldn't stand random generate. It was just annoying me. So I just read through lists and lists of names all over, and I'll just Google different things, different places, different things,
Random
different time
generate and
periods.
random generate and random generate and random generate. And sometimes I leave them together, but sometimes like one name works and one name doesn't, right? So like in last name works, but the first name doesn't, we write the last name down, and the first names work, and then we look through these like things, and then I combine them together.
No, I hated the random name generator. So I just look for names everywhere on Google. I do. The phone book days sound like they would have been fun. I
That was
try to
way more
go
fun because, like, you could be like, what, I need somebody with a last name of M, right? And then you just like turn to the M's and you just
right.
read all the M's and you're like,
I
you
feel like
know,
that would have been more
that's
fun
amazing.
than my constant Googling that I do.
Now we don't do phone books anymore. See the
I
things we
know,
lost
right?
by going to Google for everything? Crazy.
But anyway, yes, for our audience, that's how we create stories. That's what we do. It's as
Ours was not.
chaotic as this live. But yeah, so that's
This is our
how
normal conversation, by the way.
we
Like
came
we
up
sit
with
down and
it.
talk about this just randomly, like at 1 o'clock in the morning. What do you think for a character name?
Um
We can have an argument about it.
But yeah, so that's how that goes. And we are like different. And I know Ansley is trying to gaslight you. She's like, I'm not that organized. She's so organized. She organized so much.
I
I'm
am
organized.
not organized. I
No.
have a chaos management system. I am highly chaotic, and then we
Management.
organize the chaos and we pretend like it works, but it doesn't always. Although I will say
Mhm.
this. Once I got into the discipline of using both systems together, the novel writes itself. Like, so if I'm doing a novel length and I want between 50 and 60,000 words because that's a novel quest or what used to be nano. Um yeah.
Mm,
So
50,000
it
words.
does, yeah, in the month, like, it makes the month easier. So it just makes it easier and more possible.
I will say
Um,
that's true. So one thing about my actual chaos system, which has no management systems whatsoever, is I don't write quickly because I'm thinking through everything as I write it. Whereas But that's not true either because I wrote that fantasy pretty fast. So if it's straightforward, I can write it pretty quickly with an outline, without an outline, as long as I picture the story in my head and know what's happening. So I think it's knowing what's happening going into the story versus having no idea. I have sat down to write and I'm like, I don't know. And I sit there and think. And that's when it takes me much longer to write something because I'm just thinking it out in the chair, in the seat as I write it, where I'm like, what's happening? Because I also have favorite scenes. I don't have anchor scenes, but I just have scenes that I really like where I'm like, "Oh, I want this in my story." Like, I have not written this one story with Chloe, and Chloe meets Ro, and so Ro is a very marriage material guy, and Chloe is a crazy kind of girl who has poisoned dates before. Like, she's just a little wild. So they
It's all
meet. I have one scene that I picture that happens when they meet that I love. And then I thought of another scene. So I'm going to sit down one day. It's a short story. I'm never going to outline it. I don't know if I'm going to stick with outlining or not. I will just sit down one day and write that. Just write it. And then whatever I can do. So that'll give me point A and point B. And then I just link them according to the emotion. And the emotion I want in there is actually contrast between two which isn't quite an emotion, but it is between these two very different people. And I'm just gonna sit down and write it. When I get to it, after we find Brody, what happened to Brody? That's the first one.
figure it out. You got to
And
buy
that
the book as soon as it's on sale in order to figure out what happened to Brody.
right? Unless I win, then you can read it in the Alfred Hitchcock magazine. But if not, I will publish it all for you to read. Um, but yeah, that's the process. So embrace the chaos, everyone, and we will be back in 2 weeks. And Melanie Ansley, sorry, Ansley,
We all forget my pen name.
right? You started it this time, and I
I
just
know it.
forgot it. Ansley asked me to watch The Residence on Netflix. So in 2 weeks, we'll be talking about that. It will be mystery themed a little bit here until I finish Finding Brody in May. Well, we'll see if I can make mystery last till May. I will finally at some point publish that Sherlock piece that I meant to write about his dad as well. So we'll see you all in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.